In a previous webinar, we talked about the moving average and I explained how it worked to you. In this webinar, I want to go on to look at the overbought, oversold indicator, which is a professional indicator. I will assume that you understand the moving average, and I will build on top of that. So if you're not sure about that, go back and reread Technical Module 2 again, carefully. Let us now look at a chart. On this chart you can see some buy and sell signals generated by the moving average at these points. And of course there are some extensive sideways markets. Technical analysts studying charts like this noticed that in fact the best time to buy and sell was where the gap between the price and the moving average was at its greatest. In other words, the best buy was in fact here and perhaps here. Similarly, the best place to sell was not at the moving average sell signals, but here and here and here. From this simple observation, the overbought oversold indicator was developed. Consider this diagram. What we have here is a standard share price chart. We're measuring price over here and time over here, and this is the origin. And I've drawn one of these beautiful sine waves that you don't often see in the share market, but it's useful for explaining my point. And being a good student of the markets, you immediately put on a moving average, and it looks something like this. And you're very happy with that because this is your buy here, your sell signal is here, and your buy signal is here. Now to calculate the overbought oversold, what we do is we measure the gap between here and here, and we express that as a percentage of the gap between here and here. So if I can express that in a formula, the overbought oversold is equal to the price minus the moving average divided by the moving average and then multiplied by 100 to turn it into a percentage. Now when you look at this gap between here and here, which is the top part of your formula, you will notice that as we approach the sell signal, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter until at the sell signal it is 0, because there the price and the moving average are the same. So price minus moving average will give you 0. On the other side of the sell signal over here, it will be negative because now the moving average is higher than the price. So price minus moving average will give you a negative quantity. So if we look at the entire chart, you will notice that the overbought oversold will be negative over here, 0 at this buy signal here, positive over here, 0 again at the sell signal, negative over here, 0 again at the buy signal, and positive over here. So negative 0, positive 0, negative 0, positive. This is what mathematicians call an oscillator. So now I would like to look at this chart again, but in the form of an oscillator. So this here is a typical oscillator chart. As you can see, it's got the 0 line running through the middle. And of course we have -5, -10, -15 and -20. And on this side we have +5, +10, +15 and +20. And of course these are percentages derived from our overbought oversold formula. So now if we draw the overbought oversold chart onto this frame, we'll get a graph that looks something like this. And if you were using a moving average, you would be buying and selling where the moving average and the price line cross. In other words, where the overbought oversold was 0. So you would be selling here, buying here, selling here, and buying here. But we are suggesting that in fact the best place to sell is actually here, and to buy here and sell there and buy here. But what have we in fact achieved with this graph? Are we not just rearranging the numbers into a different form? What we've achieved is that we've reduced our problem to an oscillator. And that means that we can now start to apply the concepts of statistics and probability. Do not be put off by those big words. What I really mean is that we can study this share going back over the last 25 years, and we can establish that it's never been wrong to buy this particular share when it fell below -15%. we can in fact establish a buy line at the minus 15% level. But of course, in technical analysis, we need a crossover point to give us a clear signal. And here we have two crossover points. We have one here and one here. But the price will be lower at the second of these 2 points. It will be lower here. Now, to explain that, I need to go back to our first graph and have a look at where these 2 points occur. This first point will occur somewhere like here. And the second point can only occur further on in the chart when it is approaching this buy signal here. In other words, it can only occur approximately there. And the price is much lower here than it is there. So you buy here and you buy there. Now you might say to me, well, why don't we just put on a plus 15% sell line and then we've got this stock market thing wrapped up? But it's not quite that simple. There's a big difference between buying and selling. You see, beginners in the share market tend to think that buying and selling are just the same thing but the opposite way around, two sides of the same coin. Professionals understand that there's a great difference between buying and selling. Because when you buy, you can optimize in 2 dimensions. You can optimize in terms of which share you choose to buy, and then in terms of when you choose to buy it. But when you sell your shares, you can only optimize in the time dimension. You can only choose the time when you want to sell. You can't choose which share you want to sell. So whereas I can go through the entire market and look for shares which are below my minus 15% buy line in order to buy them, I can't really go through the market and look for shares which are above my plus 15% sell line in order to sell them, because the high probability is that I don't have them. So this is primarily a buying technique. It's designed to get you into the market at the right price. Because of course, if you buy at the wrong price, you're dead. So you buy here and you buy here, as we said. Having said that, there are some things you can do with an overbought oversold that will give you very good sell signals. The first thing you could do is to put on a 20-day moving average of the overbought oversold. In other words, you add up 20 overbought oversolds and divide by 20. And that, of course, will give you a classical moving average sell signal here. The second thing you could do is to look out for the sideways market at the top of a trend. Typically, at the top of a cycle, the smartest and the most stupid money are in the market at the same time. And they cause the market to move around like a cat on hot bricks. Don't get involved in that uncertainty. Recognize it for what it is and take your money and go someplace else. Beginners in the share market have another problem. They tend to believe that once a share is going up, it will go up forever. Professionals understand that the market is, by its very nature, cyclical, and that what goes up must come down. They know that they will get another opportunity to buy this share, and if not this share, then another share. Because this, of course, is an oscillator. The overbought oversold is an oscillator. It must return to minus 15%, and you will get another opportunity to buy. As I've said, if not this share, then another share. But what are we measuring with this overbought oversold indicator? We're measuring the rapid departure of the price away from its moving average. That departure must be rapid, because if it's not rapid, then of course the moving average will move down with the price and there'll be no significant gap. So what behavioral characteristic, what human behavioral characteristic would cause the share price to move away from its moving average quickly? That's the question you need to ask yourself. You may recall that when we discussed the moving average, I explained that all technical indicators are based on some kind of human behavioral characteristic. I explained to you that technical analysis is basically a social science like economics or psychology. It is in fact the study of group investor behavior. And I said that it's important to link the particular indicator that you're interested in back to the human behavioral characteristic that it exploits. So my question now is, which human behavioral characteristic does the overbought oversold exploit? So you need to ask yourself, what would cause a share price to accelerate away from its moving average on the downside? What behavioral characteristic? The obvious answer is panic. If people panic, the share price collapses, and of course the moving average will stay behind, and so you'll have a major gap or a major overbought oversold position. In fact, the word I'm looking for is the word overreaction, because this overbought oversold technique is in fact a method for quantifying the overreactions of the marketplace. So it becomes possible for me to go back over a share's history and to study its overbought oversold going back, say, 25 years, and by doing that I can establish that it only spends, say, 2% of its time below my minus 15% buy line. I put it to you then that if that is the case, my statistical probability in being wrong in buying it down here is extremely low. And I have one great satisfaction. I'm not buying it up here, but somebody did. Otherwise the chart doesn't go there, and I'm doing a lot better than him. And that's really all that you can ask of technical analysis, that it bends the odds in your favor, so that it becomes like playing a roulette table, where the odds are stacked maybe 60 or 70% in your favor. Would you play such a table? Of course you would, because you know that even though it's a certainty that you're going to lose maybe 30 or 40% of the time, because the odds are stacked in your favor, so long as you keep playing, you must eventually win. You see, investment is not about certainty. Investment is about probabilities. It's about using your knowledge, your experience, your understanding to bend the odds in your favor. Let's look at an actual overbought oversold chart now. Here you can see the gold index going back to 2001. So this is about 12, 13 years of data. And what's interesting about this overbought oversold is that you can see that it very seldom goes down below minus 20. And very occasionally, about once every 5 or 6 years, it goes down to minus 30. So you could put your buy line at minus 20 and you would get quite a few signals. Or you could put it down here at minus 30 and you would get only 2, maybe 3 signals. One, of course, is pretty current, right now in 2013. What's interesting is that there was somebody, though, who bought it up here at plus 60. Isn't that incredible? But that must have happened because otherwise the chart doesn't go there. Now you can see when looking at this chart that it really is not sensible to buy shares when they're at very, very high overbought oversold positions. So again, I stress to you that the objective of the overbought oversold is to improve your probability of being right when you make your transactions. And I would suggest, especially if you're dealing with shares that are fairly volatile, like gold shares, that you have to have an overbought oversold analysis to assist you with your timing.